Okay, great. Well, hi, like I said, I'm Emma Walker, the ARI curriculum manager, and I'm really excited to be here to finish up our CE webinar series for instructors this season with Jeremy Jolley from Arva. Really excited to give folks an opportunity to learn a little bit more about all of the different beacons on the market. It's amazing what various students show up with. Sometimes you'll get like a run of like everybody has the same beacon, makes it super simple, and sometimes everybody has something different, so it's always a little bit of problem solving. So several folks have specifically told me that they're really excited to learn more about Arva products specifically because that's kind of their biggest knowledge gap. So really excited to have Jeremy here to tell us a little bit more about that. And with that, Jeremy, I will let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. You can hear me okay? Everything's all right?
I certainly can.
Great. I'll share my screen here in a minute with some content, but again, thank you so much for having me, ARI. This is a connection that we are happy to have, and hopefully we can give you a base information to help out with your students, and then also potentially in the future if you need direct information, a channel with Arva. So. Yeah, the base on what we wanted to do today is, let me get on my screen real quick, if that's all right. So and today is a powder day, almost like this ski day. So I think we have a few less people on. Hopefully we'll make the most of the recorded content here too. But Arva is a 35-year company out of France. So our goals today with you are really to have you be more familiar with our products. I'm going to be the last one. You'll see this in my presentation. You'll see this that I really want this to be unbranded. We want it to be information based. So I'm not here to make an advertisement. And I hope you can tailor questions or any future conversations with that. But the end goal too, as hopefully you have with your students, your instructors, is just to have better conversations, know their product, and then hopefully in the results of our conversations and talking about this specific type of product, you may learn a thing or two about transceivers, or something else you've already known. I know we have a great education base among the instructors here, but just something new. And again, I do want to just make sure we open a channel. Anytime you have equipment questions, your student does, we can always be reached out at service@arvaequipment.com. That's our local U.S. headquarters. So yeah, that said, we are coming in from from Orem, Utah today. And that's where our U.S. headquarters is. Globally, here's a little more of our company bio. We are based in France. This is the building there in a town called Annecy. It's just a half hour south of Geneva, Switzerland, and about an hour to an hour and a half from like the Chamonix Alps area. And we are one of the 5. I'm going to see if I can just change a view here. So we are one of the 5 transceiver companies in the world. There's been a couple others that we'll go to on the slideshow here, but there's 5 companies that currently make this type of product, being transceivers. Arva is the last family-held or independent one. So all the other kind of 4 companies that make this product have been just bought up by different corporate entities, and so we kind of pride ourselves in being an independent and a tightly focused product line. So we'll talk further about that as well. The company was founded actually by a French collegiate skier champion. Her name is Nicole Girardon. She began in the early 80s importing and exporting climbing skins. And in the mid to 80s, around 84, 85, she helped develop one of the first avalanche transceivers that was geared towards the consumer. So at this time, it was mostly happening in Europe, and it was Ortovox and Arva were kind of the 2 companies where you could buy something that was really tailored not to ski patrols and training specifically, but to the end consumer. Arva is a big acronym. I'm not going to go ahead and try to pronounce it with a French accent here, but that refers to rescue device for the victims of avalanches there. So we obviously have a good market share in France. We're well known there, and we have our innovations, which we'll talk to specifically in some more slides. But we were the first brand in Europe to have a digital transceiver in '98, and then we also, like I mentioned, have a narrow focus on our product with that gives us a chance to innovate, because I mean, snow safety is all we do: beacon, shovels, probes, airbags, and a couple of accessories. The other thing we pride ourselves on as a company is we are a carbon neutral company as of last November. So we don't have the biggest mouth for marketing. It's awesome. We were founded by a woman. It's awesome. We're carbon neutral. We do a poor job of marketing that, but hey, makes us feel good, right? So, but part of that sustainability element is that our beacons are nearly 100%, within reason, that there's certain parts that need to come from different places in the world, but they're sourced, assembled, and made in France, all within a short distance to 150 miles or so, where one place can go to another place and get developed, assembled, etc. So with that 35 year and history, we started, with a product that red transceiver you said, the Arva 4000 was kind of the base for the product, and it's kind of grown into there and kind of branched from a product into a little more of a vision and a wide company. The gentleman you see in the picture there next to the 2002 is Patrick Giordon. So he is the son of the founders there, and he took over around that era and has relaunched and given it a lot more global aspect. And that is one thing where we know of the 5 brands, a lot of places in the U.S. we're one of the lesser known ones. We had a distributor that kind of didn't do it justice for a few years, lost some traction in the U.S., but we were definitely on a strong growth curve, and you're going to see more and more of our products. So, and coming along that curve up into 2017, the main focus today is transceivers, but we will touch a little bit on what we're doing with avalanche airbags, because we do have a very rich and lesser known history in that category. We've been our main guys that are doing it have been doing it for 15 plus years, and we have some pretty compelling and product we're very proud of there. So so the history overall, again, and I'm going to start to illustrate this with a lot of models and things. And again, I'm going to move it into a non-branded phase here in about 2 or 3 slides that will give you some different relevance as to the timing of transceivers and the evolution of them in general. So again, '84 was around that time when that Arva 4000 came out, and coming into the mid '90s, there was probably a few models that came out here from several other companies between then. But in the mid '90s was the time when that dual antenna technology came about, and so we came into that. This is just a quick stepping stone of some Arva. We're going to revisit on this, and then again, maybe a comment we skipped over in the front, but if we do have some questions, either I'll try to see if I can field them in comments, or if Emma wants to chime in at all, or we will definitely leave some room at the end if the questions can wait till then. So in 2013, so a little more recently, we were the first transceiver company with that NEO to have a 60-meter digital range. So we were the first to sell it in that year and launch that product. That's a product that's done really well for us. We're proud, and we're taking it to the next level here starting next year. But yeah, it was a cool little backstory on that one. We didn't spend a ton of money with Backcountry Magazine. It won the award. It came out because really at the end of the day, it's a real simple, easy to use product that was outperforming the more expensive beacons. At the same time, it was an interface that was very user friendly as well. So. And on that spirit of innovation, in 2016-17, we had the first avalanche transceiver. This is now since discontinued, but it had a full-size, full-strength third antenna. So you can see in that Axio model, that red antenna that branches down. It gave, a little more of a, full spherical picture of data versus, your traditional like kind of pancake or football shape of data capture field. And so it was very strong, 60 meters in every direction, could easily get optimal coupling, and was very accurate. So we'll talk about what we've replaced that, or what came of that. In 2019, just a couple of years ago, we launched the Evo 5. That's a beacon we'll mention too. We kind of pushed the limits of what we could do in a very small package, fits in your pocket. And then in 2022, this is going towards next year, we'll have a new version of the Neo that will be the first transceiver with an 80 meter range, and then it has a couple other exciting things going on with it. So anyway, that's kind of our timeline of some important innovations, how we see it. We do, at the end of the day, we just want to create, again, we're not a huge marketing company. We want to make quality products that are easy to use. And that's kind of our MO. We want to talk about what the consumer needs. And this is also a great touch point for all area instructors, to where, we love a communication channel of what we could either do in the future, what you're experiencing now, or anything like that. But we just want to have that as really our end goal. Over the course of time, I flashed a few transceivers there for our critical innovations, what we felt and what has been successful. This is some data I pulled from beaconreviews.com on what they have in their system. Steve's a great guy. He's based here in Utah, and he does a very unbiased reviews on there. And so this is just some straight data on everything over time with its years and such. And this can be accessed via his website, and he's constantly updating it. One thing I wanted to throw this in here is not just kind of the count of how many transceivers companies have produced. And the spirit of that is that we're really continuing to innovate as much as we can as an independent company. But Beacon Reviews as well, if we take that step to you guys in your courses and talking to your instructors, if you have to send somebody to do some Beacon homework, Beacon Reviews is a great place to do that. Again, he's very honest. He says good things about every company. He says bad things about every company. He's objective there. It's also a top source for the concept of updating and upgrading your transceiver. So that is something more companies, some more than others, have gone through updates with their software. And I think it's important to also recognize there's a difference between updating it and upgrading it, adding features versus kind of just software updates. So that's kind of a consumer misnomer of maybe optimizing equipment or making it better versus kind of, fixing up whatever needs to be done in software. So a lot of ours, and again, let me just speak with Arva specifically, so you guys have a knowledge, but a lot of our transceivers haven't had to have many major or any minor, really, for that matter, software updates. So we've been lucky in our algorithms and our finished product that it's done really well. So we get a lot of people, a few people email us a month or a year and say, hey, do I need to update my transceiver? It's a couple years old, and we'll look at the software version and they're fine. They're just fine. That's been rock solid. We're all good with it. So a couple other, just notes there on that kind of front. Now, I'm just threw this picture in this morning. This is in my kitchen, and maybe we'll think, why do I have a picture of some different spatulas or pancake flippers, whatever you want to call them? And when I got invited to do this talk and this conversation, I was home that day, and I'm just looking. I have 3 kids here in Utah and a great wife and stuff. She was actually the ski patroller. I came from a little different background in sales, but I have all these spatulas, and I think this might be a representation of what you guys see at your courses. Again, I don't work as an instructor. I'm more in sales and brand and product here, but what you guys see is probably a mix, a big hodgepodge, right, of different product coming in. And, me thinking about this might not be a direct correlation, but, there's certain spatulas I might like for eggs or pancakes or anything else. But but you guys have a different mix of products coming in. So I wanted to put this slide in to just kind of reset and kind of shift our paradigm for what we're thinking, and just to think really unbranded. So the next slides I've taken out any of our marketing, any brand logos, anything like that, because I really just think, okay, what's unbranded and what's been the innovation. So, and again, our end goal is to really help their student with whatever they show up with. Okay, so the evolution of transceivers. This has gone, and we're speaking all brands, everybody together, we're all on the same team. How have we improved this tool for users? So if we kind of step back, and we used to say there's about 5 or 7 kind of major milestones. The starting point was the starting point was actually behind this, and we'll talk about another slide here about some of the earlier product that was very ski patrol specific. But the analog beacons, again, this goes to that early 80s era, and that we had these analog transceivers. So I'm going to go over this in detail quick, and then into each category. But the digital was kind of that next realm where all of a sudden you could pick up a signal with 2 antennas, get yourself a distance and direction, and that made it, again, a easier product to use. I know this is a good baseline, but this is kind of going to build on what we want to look at. 3 antennas, so that old original Peeps in early 2000s came out, and that was the first antenna, both with the 3 antennas for accuracy in that pinpoint, as well as the ability to mark and flags for signals and such. Number 4, kind of that next milestone was that concept of marking was definitely improved upon. So the original one, and it was, that had some different software updates over time, but that original one came into a lot more technology that is give the people the ability to either suppress one signal or mark multiple signals, and that's been a nice tool to have. Even though, and it's been marketed in different regards, multiple victim scenarios are rare, but to me, even if they are, it's like a spare tire and a flat in your car. If you can have the technology, you should have it. The 5th big milestone, this came in, and this is actually one that I'm going to talk about in more detail, but there was some different communication expansions. So if you notice, the degree of power draw and the degree of software that each step would require, the step number 5 came in at a point where it was almost a little too much, and I'll go into a little more detail on that. And then number 6 we have in there is just that expanded, that simple search range. So we talked about launching the Neo in 2013. I talked about kind of the getting that Editor's Choice Award, and that was kind of a pivotal moment for us, but it was also a great moment for the industry, because you had all of a sudden a transceiver that came in at $350 that was outperforming all these 400, and then it was simple to use as well. So I think that was a great balance of what the market can do. And then 7 is kind of into the future. So what are going to be these next few things that are either already in use by companies or will be more critical? And I really think this is great as far as the ARRI interface, because you guys, maybe while you're not developing or have your hands behind a lot of this product, and these product managers, wherever they're located in the world, I think the way you guys teach to these is very critical for everybody involved with this type of equipment, be it manufacturers, end users, anybody else. So, I think these are some of the best things going on right now. And these are all things that, more than one company is doing right now. But, interference management, dealing with more and more of these digital culprits, standby and rescue mode, or shovel mode, as I like to call it sometimes. We'll go into that in a little more detail. And then all, different things from scanning, scrolling to using apps. So I think that's kind of the next level of evolution. And there's a few beacons doing that pretty well right now. So should pause for any questions or comments at this point in time. I'm going to do a quick little overview of everything, just a little timeline to do it. But I don't know, Emma, if we have any comments or specific things to talk right now.
I don't see anything in the chat or the Q&A, so I think we can keep rolling, but I'll keep an eye on that, folks, if you want to drop questions in the chat.
Okay, sounds good. We'll just do a quick little timeline on some of the technology maybe we've all used, we've seen, we've shared. Again, this analog technology, there's going to be a few little things here that you might pick up and relate to modern stuff. But again, the technology back in the day with the SCADI, some of the original Bear Box product was very, Army focused, utilitarian, ski patrol, and that's where some of this funding in this product was developed and came for. The batteries lasted forever, if you guys remember. So now these were all based on a single antenna. So this is probably redundant for a lot of you guys, but you have different couplings in the antenna. And ideally, this is where it was very important with single antennas, is you had to line them up, and that was kind of that optimal pairing. So that is, you parallel to the wave and the direction coming in. And then, quickly into the future a little bit. 97, 98 was kind of a great year. Some solid movies came out, but this was even better for the consumer because this was a very user-friendly product that came out. It was giving direction and distance. It gave a whole new user group access to this type of product. It saved a lot of lives in those days. And this technology was launched kind of within the same year, but BCA did have it first here within the US market with that tracker DTS that a lot of us probably remember. Occasionally we still see a few of these, and we'll talk about maybe some different reasons to prompt those people to upgrade. Arva was too also, and this is actually not the exact specific one, but the Arva 9000, we'll see in a picture later. I didn't have a good stock photo. Arva was the first European company that year in 98 to bring out a digital 2-antenna transceiver there. So again, at the time, you have a little different manufacturing specifications where it's drawing more power, it's doing some math for you, but again, at the end, it was very, very consumer friendly. And one thing to note here, and I'll take this in the next slide, but all beacons still will be transmitting on one antenna. So a lot of students don't pick that up and maybe don't get the concept, but it's going to have that primary antenna that's going to transmit on, and then it's the receiving that is critical for 2 antennas, 3 antennas, etc. And again, some different materials have been made over time, and that's another one of these. We'll talk about a few different reasons to talk to students about upgrading, but these antennas, and I got another slide here coming up right here, will show on where they're placed, where they're at. Obviously, they're going to vary model to model, but that's kind of the layout of those. So after that 2-antenna era, we carried into the earlier 2010s, and the concept of 3 antennas came into the market. So again, this Peeps was the first one there, and had the benefit of just a simple accuracy here. And again, I'll try to give, if it helps, a few little samples, but it was taking, when you talk about the concept of spikes, if you still have to at all, but potentially you had a shorter distance being to the side of the transceiver than straight over what the victim would be. So you might get a place where you start probing that's not exactly over it. That's that concept of a spike. And so that third antenna, it's picking up within about 8 to 10 meters there at the end. Typically, they're small. I mentioned that Axio that we launched that had a bigger one, but typically they're all just a little vertical antenna within the casing there. And again, you get within about that 8 to 10 meters, 25 feet or so, and it's now doing its math kind of in three ways and can give you that most optimal signal. At the same time, it also doesn't matter the orientation of the transmitting beacon. So you're getting that optimal coupling, which again is leading you to hopefully the closest place right over the snow to get an efficient probing time there. And again, the placement is here. This is one little note too. This is just a sample one that I take into some retail markets and show people. If you notice that vertical antenna here, just to the right of the logo there, actually is broken. And so I had it in a store one day, and I was passing it around for people just to kind of look and grasp kind of this antenna concept. And a guy dropped it, and it fell and it cracked the antenna. And he was super apologetic and everything at the time. But I was actually, you know what, that's actually really cool. I'm glad you did it, because it really shows kind of, again, these are just materials that are there, and they are they're hardware, and they could break. I mean, it's just like anything you drop. You might have issues at different points, and that's where, you know, when we're fielding different issues with transceivers, it's a lot of times it's hard to diagnose either over email or over the phone. It's still hard, but not a little less random out on the field like you guys deal with. But yeah, we've seen different things where, you know, battery corrosion can just kind of creep up into this motherboard and different things. So there's always, you know, you got to think about what's going on the inside as much as what's numbers it's giving you everything else on the screen. So cool. So that's kind of that jumping out of that 3 antenna world. And this is that one I mentioned. I'm going to go into a little more detail, but this is my personal and kind of, we'll just say in my humble opinion, but we went to a phase where we had these transceivers, you know, they were north of $400 and they were doing a ton. And so we were asking them to do things from GPS to a secondary frequency that could talk, and kind of the spirit was good here. The innovation, the concepts were all over the place. I mean, at one point, well, you know, Arva and Mammut shared this W-Link, this secondary 868 megahertz frequency, and it was two-way communication. So they used it as a potential pulse or movement. We were on the path for using it for beacons to talk to one another, you know, in terms of maybe, you know, one marks and the other mark two. But what I think came about this wasn't necessarily benefiting the end user. And again, that's kind of who we're here for. We want to make a simple tool and make a good tool, an efficient tool. This also was similar in my opinion here, where we were putting more onto the transceiver, asking it what to do. So it's like your computer at home when it's really loaded and it slows down, or you have more going on. You just kind of have a different thing. And so that's where I think it came simplified to the next technology, which is a little more user friendly, intuitive, and easy. Hence, this is again that 2013 era when we came in with the Neo, and it was an interface that was quick, very fast. If anybody has used a Neo, or if you would like to, we can figure something out. But it's a very fast interface. It's also very accurate, and it's simple to follow on our screen, very intuitive. So that was where you know, we were sending out samples and people were trying it, whether it was magazine testers, educators, anything at that time, and it was just easy feedback of, hey, this thing works great, the range is amazing, the marking super accurate, and it's a great product. So this is where I think we struck a great chord with something. And again, we came in at a fairly aggressive price at $350, where it was really outperforming those $450. So to us, and what you guys can have your own opinions of what the market is, but you know, that 400 plus north range gets a little weird because that's not a huge consumer product, and it's really like, at the end of the day, are you selling the best product? You know, we get retailers and people all the time. You'd think, come in, give me the most expensive thing, it's going to be the best. And as you guys know from using different things in the field, maybe that's not the best for that person. So yeah, so there was a balance there, and again, the cycle on the new transceivers is not as quick as some other items out in the world, but everything is new. You know, typically it's a 3 to 4 to 5 year process from pencil to production. So yeah, but there will be some reasons to upgrade, and we can talk on that too. Actually, let me pause there too. So some of those reasons, and again, I'll take additions from you guys, or if you want to comment, even just throw in the chat to get some conversation going. But you know, when you have somebody come in, now that we have a few innovation things that we've talked about, the reason to upgrade, you know, it might be from a 2 antenna to a 3 antenna. It might be from a 40 meter search range to a 60 bigger search range. It might be the idea of multiple victim marking, or it might just be an aged product. And so there's some different things there that are kind of used or would be of enough benefit to really sell it. Say, hey, it's not that I don't like your beacon, but if you wanted to spend a little more, you'll get more performance, or if it's due, or typically manufacturers will say every 5 to 7 years, if not for new innovative technology, for just updating the hardware and having a new product for this kind of equipment. Cool. So I'm gonna just jump out real quick. Emma, everything going okay? And any questions thus far?
Yeah, no, this is great. I'm learning a lot.
Okay.
I don't see any questions in the chat, so I think we're good to keep rolling.
Okay, super. Great. So where I wanted to take kind of this conversation is hey, we've got this base, we've got these tools. It doesn't matter what color, it doesn't matter the logo. What we really want is something functional for your students, and we want you guys to have a grasp on what this model does or that model does. At the same time, there's a lot going on with everything to do with the factors of the search. So I tried to break this down simple, and I know this slide isn't going to do this idea justice. There's a lot more to it, but what really matters at the end. And so there's going to be factors with the device, and there's going to be factors with the user. And I think some of those we can control, but some of those I think are more to be trained and et cetera like that. But at the end of the day, I see the transceivers, even as glamorous as they are, as advanced in technology, as expensive they are, everyone on this broadcast knows the real work is really the shoveling and getting to that, but the transceivers get you there as hopefully as fast as possible. So it's good to practice. It's good to know your things. It's good to know what can happen with your gear. But really, at the end of the day, a lot of people say, why aren't transceivers more developed? We'll get questions like that. Or, we have all this technology with the phone. I can see where 3 people are and calculate my distance and miles and everything else and give me turning directions. But at the end of the day, I mean, you're out on the snow, you're in nature. You need to just get from A to B. A being where you start your search, and B being where the burial might be. So to simplify it down, and again, I don't mean to oversimplify it here, because I know you guys teach a lot of great content within here, but you need to get the signal, you need to go to the signal, and you need to start probing. So with that in mind, you got people that show up, and what might be some of the key factors on the device. Again, feel free to type in any chats, email any questions at any point in time. But to us, and based on some of my experience, a functional test of the beacon. And so the functional test has a few different parts. You can do some different things to go into detail, but to really simplify it, you need to make sure it's transmitting okay, and you need to make sure it's transmitting accurately. A lot of beacons now will have a group check mode. Now realize too, this might be one of a couple things. It might be just a way to make sure it's on and transmitting. It might have a little more detailed to where it's going to diagnose the frequency itself, telling you that it's accurate or it's drifted off. And there's going to be certain beacons that do that and certain beacons that don't. But the transmitting and the OK can be done in either a built-in group check in the transceiver, like a chest check, and just making it into that mode, again, which several beacons have. Or like you guys teach, more of a trailhead check, where you're functionally going into send, receive, going at distances, walking by, everybody's switching over one way and the other way, which is also a great method. And hopefully we get more and more people doing both. And so that's kind of the end goal, is to just do them. But that's kind of the first factor of the device. So is it transmitting? That's obviously number one. That's what you want. And again, there could be factors behind this where it's damaged, like that antenna I showed you, like the batteries might be low, and so different things. The transmitting, it's just like your car radio. It doesn't take a lot of, or a handheld radio. It doesn't take a lot of power to listen and to transmit. That's kind of its most simple basic feature, so that's good. But once you start to go into search mode, or you start to transmit, you're really pulling a lot more power, voltage, watts, however you want to put it. And whether it's a 5 to 10 factor or whatever it is, you're asking it to do more. So So that's something within the device you want to be sure to note, be aware of it, especially if you're dancing with a low battery and different things. And that's why you guys always tell your people to replace them at 60% or whatever your number is there. It's close to that. Searching, again, function number 2 is it able to receive a signal? There's a little more testing you could do with this regard. Is it picking up a single? Is it picking up a multiple? Is it picking up a far distance? This is one area where that built-in group check with whatever model you're using, assuming it has it, can be good because it doesn't get confused with multiple beacons. It doesn't get confused necessarily with somebody standing 1.3 meters away versus somebody standing 13 meters away. And we've seen people kind of confuse math and do that. So the group check in that regard versus the trailhead type of check, they both have relative and they both have different functions. The multi-function as well. So if you have a large group in front of you, everybody goes into search, but maybe 2 people don't, and you're thinking one person you can see with a lot of the more modern transceivers that will show you how many transceivers are still on. And then the distance check is last. Speaking of distance as well, you can kind of see that we're big proponents at Arva with maximizing this. We talked about, we showed the one antenna in that shell. That was one way with the Neo, because of the size of the transceiver we're able to place and have the certain antennas that was able to capture a bigger data field. And so that is, distance is not, to me, distance to me is a few things. And I don't, what I'd like to get across here is I don't want people to discount it, say, oh, you reach a point where it's less relative, or there's this diminishing return where it's only a factor of, hey, how far can this pick up? Because distance to me means a few things. Again, it's a jump on an initial search. So, we've had specific accidents here in the US. The year we launched the Neo, actually in Montana, I had a guy come up to me at an avalanche workshop, and he said, hey, I had the Neo the year it came out. I just wanted to share this story. I didn't have a good result. My friend didn't make it, but I had a signal what seemed like minutes before my other friends did. So they were literally following me. So that's kind of one factor of getting an initial search, and whether it's bigger terrain, Alaska, wherever you're at, that can be more or less of a factor. Depends on the terrain itself. But the other important factor here too is getting an early signal also means a more confident signal when you're in that middle range. So when you're in that 30, 40, 50 range, it's been tracking the signal or multiple signals longer. So it's able to decipher them, to separate them, to be able to have a more confident read going into that distance. Sometimes, occasionally too, like we've had a couple comments. Actually, I think I had a discussion with Steve, the Beacon Reviews guy, on this. But having a bigger range and a bigger opportunity to capture a signal, it does make it sometimes a little more sensitive. So I don't like to use the word ghosting here, because it's not necessarily a false signal that's repeating, but it can catch more of a glimpse. And anybody who's used it, and this goes down into the user factor category here, but you can kind of start to recognize, once you have timing on transceivers, a positive signal, a confident signal where it's got multiple times. Sometimes on ours, the indicator for the victim might pulse or be solid, indicating 2 different things. And so that's another factor coming back for distance that's important, helpful, critical, and again, just making the best tool for people. And then hardware and condition. Again, that's just what's going on with the device, looking at the batteries, the battery terminals, the condition inside, outside. You shaking it and it rattles. There's something loose in there. There's just the general condition of how people use it. A lot of people, will damage stuff and they won't even realize it. We'll get some in on warranty, and at the end of the day, the guy's like, well, actually, I think I was handling it, and I threw it in the back of my truck, and I threw some stuff on top of it, and it was in my backpack. So maybe that's when that impact might have happened or something. And again, we work with people, we make them happy. We have mutual goals of having them confident with this type of product. And have a 5-year warranty for whatever it's worth. But anyway, this type of device factor is also kind of worth noting, and just kind of stepping back as anything happens with when you're looking at beacons in general. And then the user factors. So we're going a little more into your guys' ballpark here. So we want to see where you guys are getting, you're setting up different scenarios. You might have people come to you thinking something's off, whether it's as simple as explaining like you're on a different flux line, you're coming on the back of it, so the arrow's switching over, something like this. But the end of the day, people really need to be explained or practiced or educated in some manner, either what their modes are on their beacons, how certain situations they might be handled with them, and then also just different variables. So again, in application, I think is where you guys are really valuable as instructors and as people in the field there, to have a little more knowledge on what beacons, maybe what models are capable of. Again, the goal is a simple interface, but is this standby mechanism, is this auto revert mechanism on a motion sensor? Is it on a timer? I mean, these are something that someone should know with their beacon. And we have interference management software. There's currently only 2 companies of the 5 out there that have some software that manages interference when it's in receiving mode. And so this is an important thing we see going forward, because there's more and more digital culprits, from heated gloves to Bluetooth watches, GoPro. These are kind of subtle little things, but they can kind of raise that level of noise when the transceiver's listening to different signals. And so we see interference management. And again, is the customer, do they know what that indication looks like? Do they know what that indication sounds like? These are user factors that somebody that just kind of opened the box, showed up to level 1, may or may not have in there. And again, I'll speak at the end too of how we're trying to address that and get people more comfortable with their gear. Another factor listed on here that's maybe worthwhile, and again, talking about just the functional techniques, knowing about your partner's beacon. So I know that it's probably on the back of the mind for a lot of instructors when you guys take the time to go into a trailhead beacon check and look at what's on the other end, right? What are you picking up? This to me, I mean, it doesn't, I won't say it hit home necessarily, but there's been some accidents recently with multiple burials. And even just a week ago, I was with a course helping out where there was kind of some mixed messages on what they should do at different times with their transceivers. So the accident that was in Utah, if anybody read that very intense report last year on the multiple death that we experienced last February, as a manufacturer and as someone, just like you guys with try to keep your awareness active here, that rescue had a lot to do with the rescuers turning transceiver off in order to go to the next one. So I don't think there was any time delay in what they did. I think it was perfect. It was useful. It was functional. But the other thing too is, in comparing it, bring it in home to what a transceiver is capable of, is in a multiple burial, is marking going to be your fastest thing if you're going to move to a second person? How are you going to handle this? As another example, what if the other beacon can't be turned off, or what if you don't know how to turn it off? So it's very situational. There's not a clear answer, and it's definitely an idea of practicing both different situations as well as knowing different beacons. But back to it, do you know how to turn something on, turn something off? And then, basically multi-victim searching strategies, where you're going to do your typical field search in kind of a Z pattern. You can do a line formation, just different factors that, hey, how does this tie to a transceiver? Should I be 20 meters apart? Should I be 30 meters apart? Again, this is a huge gray, almost uneducatable area. 20 is this is going to be safe because it's going to cover most transceivers. But again, if you have 2 people with 60-meter beacons, search ranges, in theory, you could spread out a little more. So again, just different strategies, different things to do. And then the last one here is in standby mode. So this is one that when I was in this training group a little while ago, and I won't question or call out any techniques at all, but one of the instructors had talked about hang fire and talked about kind of assessing, again, what are you going to do going into it, and what's your first few things you look at before you even start an accident that just occurred, an avalanche that just occurred. And so talked about hang fire, but then also about 10, 15 minutes later, we had located the transceiver, we probed, we shoveled everything else here. And in the process, again, this was assumed to be a single burial, but in that process of other people grabbing gear in order to be expedited, in the process of maybe limiting what you're going to do with your transceivers to quiet them or calm them down or not be a factor to get bumped back into transmit or anything like that. This instructor talked about asking the other people to turn their transceivers off. And these were not the same transceiver I used. And I just tried to politely say, well, we also have standby mode in ours. I know there's one other company that has a rescue mode, in which the transceiver is now not transmitting to interfere with the search. It's not receiving to maybe interfere with any communication or potentially go back for any reason, but the motion sensor is active. You can throw it in your pocket to shovel, and the auto reverts there if a second avalanche came or something like that. So again, this is, it's not going to be to every you're going to have a few different situations with different models of transceivers. So there's not a very teachable protocol here that's simple. But again, these are just use factors to be aware of. And again, maybe you guys will have better tools to work with than I will on this kind of stuff. Cool. So let me just jump back real quick, see if there's any questions, any comments. What does Arva recommend for replacing their transceiver? So we're on that path, same thing, about, we'll say 5 to 7 years. And it's user dependent, it's use dependent, but it's, at the end of the day, if I had somebody standing in front of me, when should we replace it? It's subjective to what they're using now. If they're comfortable with it, if it's a modern transceiver with features that are going to be good and efficient for them, and then that 5 to 7 year range also kind of gives you the caveat of like, hey, is there something new innovation wise, or hey, being a life-saving object, that you should just kind of replace the hardware for that reason. And there's always the analogy, kind of the backup, that you can compare them to cell phones, and like, who out there is using a flip phone still, or a 5-year-old cell phone. And that's kind of another kind of confirmation for people to consider this. But at the end of the day, I really stand by, the best beacon out there is the one you know how to use. Again, I don't care what color, I don't care what logo. I might speak differently than other brands like that, but at the end of the day, we're just really wanting to go and give a good tool here. So thanks for that question, Tristan. Anything else, Emma, or are we all okay?
I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat or the Q&A, but yeah, Tristan, that's a good question. We actually, Ari just sent out an email to our student, like our general audience, that has sort of a table on when folks recommend replacing and when you need a software update. And there's all these really kind of complicated factors, but it really is, I think you just put it so much better than I did as we were working on that email, of just, you replace your cell phone often, and so that's a life-saving device. So don't overthink it with the software updates and the how many years. It's like, make sure that your technology is up to date. So that's really good framing.
You can steal any of that too, huh?
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll take you up on that.
Cool.
Awesome. Do folks have other questions to drop in the chat, or I'll give people just a second? This has been really informative to me too. I also, that that Arva has also been a knowledge gap for me. So this was great. And it also is such an important reminder to me of, I again tend to kind of overcomplicate things, but really what it comes down to is it really we're using a lot of the same technologies and we're seeing a lot of the same patterns. And like you said, it really is the beacon you know how to use. So thanks for the simplification there.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I don't have too much more as far as presentation. I do have a few slides that I wanted to go through and cover, but we're kind of just, what I want to do is just shift gears. I know we're kind of almost up against the hour here too, and I'll leave time, like I said, for questions at the end. One thing I wanted to draw in here at this point in time too, and this might be a little more specific to Arva. So if you do have questions, again, type them away, but I will pull our product out right now and run through each one briefly. And again, I'm not here to make a sales pitch in any regard, but I do, if one of these triggers something you saw at an educational event or anything else, please, again, put in the chat or send us an email. Happy to follow up. We currently have 3 models we sell. We kind of go based on user is a lot of it. And so the initial model is our Evo 5. And actually I'm going to jump over here real quick. So the Evo 5, I just have, welcome to headquarters here. It's snowing today. So the Evo 4, I'm starting with the Evo 4. So the Evo 4 is a mold we've had for a while. This is a shape, if you guys recognize some of those slides, we've done for some time. This we sell in, it's the least, this gives you kind of the idea, the mantra of it. It's the least expensive beacon with multiple victim marking. It's just a base of what a beacon does, nothing extra. No frills. I want something easy. I want something there. And again, I'm gonna hone into some things you guys might experience in the field. The Evo 4 does come with a clip for safe harness. So this harness is built into the transceiver. Again, for this user, we sell this to a lot of like guide services or different companies because it's what I call the ultimate client beacon, because they have to have it on to be wearing it. So every time you plug in the harness there, it's an old switch. It's not necessarily unique to us. Other companies have done that. Same concept. But when you wear it, it's turned on. So there's kind of that liability risk or that ease of there. And again, I joke when I do explanations or videos on this, if you count to 5, you can use it. It only does 5 things, and on and off is 2 of them. The transmitting will show the arrow. The search is just up there in the toggle. And then, like I said, it does have actual multiple victim marking. We talked about a little bit some of the differences with masking. In that presentation, or just a single suppression. This is true marking, so it's remembering each signal individually. And so we even brought that into our price point beacon. So mark is kind of that 4th function. And the last thing we did put in this, it does have a group check. So if you hold the button down and you put it on, you can do kind of a chest check scenario if you'd like. Again, you're always to do that trailhead as well, both good. So that's the Evo 4. One thing I'll mention, and some feedback we have got on this, some people don't love the range when you go out to search. So because of the way this is worn over the shoulders, it's kind of attached to the body. You'd take your jacket down, you'd zip it up, but it doesn't have that classic, like huge, reach out when you get on that snow. You want to stretch it out off a bungee or whatever the tether is and get on the snow. So we do make, and again, we do that on purpose because this user we see really as more of, hey, it's better to be on and on their body than any kind of other factor potentially. That's what's most important and prioritized. But we do make a pro kind of aftermarket version that is your more traditional. So, we've donated these to some avalanche centers or different things for demos, and they always come back with that feedback. And it's like, well, if you want a different harness, you want that more traditional style harness, it is sold as an accessory for like $39, so that customer can purchase that. So if that becomes a factor in any kind of classes, that's an option there. But again, for like a $259 retail is what we have this at this year. That's a good, and again, it's a proven product. We've launched it for years and everything's out there. So that's the Evo 4. Another transceiver you might see in the lineup coming in is our small, lightweight Evo 5. We launched this in 2019. This was basically where we pushed the limits of something pocket size. I mean, if I hold it up to my phone, I don't have that jumbo phone, but it's just small. It goes in your pocket, and it you forget it's there because it's so small. So we really pushed the limits. We were still able with the antenna configuration to make this a 50-meter range. So it's still outperforming a lot. And the interface in this, we've got a few of like the basic functions that are built in. We actually made this so it wasn't necessarily customizable, meaning that, like, when we move and talk about the Neo next, you can program and customize the timing on the auto revert, the marking distance, some turn features on and off, be it group check or interference management. So the interference management on this is always on. Again, and there's only, again, 2 companies of the 5 that will notify you, hey, there's some interference present. Maybe you can do something about it, maybe you can't. But the software compensates, it's passive. You'd obviously be in a state of panic, your adrenaline's going, you don't want to deal with anything else. The software compensates by shrinking, say, that 50-meter range on this one down to 30. It cuts out some background noise, some distance. It focuses on a smaller area, and it's able to lock onto signal better. So that's that interference management that's built into this Arva, as well as the Neo, as well as one other brand is working with that. The Evo 5 also has an auto revert on a timer. I mentioned that earlier in the discussion. So every 8 minutes, this person's searching and goes into search mode. It's going to flash a little auto revert indicator, countdown 10, 9, 8, loud while it's beeping, and the user will just simply push the flag button to continue searching uninterrupted, and then know that they're okay. Again, in the event of a second avalanche, or they're put in danger under snow, they're not able to respond, they're okay, it's going to revert back to transmit. So yeah, other than that, I mean, obviously multi-victim marking, 3 antennas, everything's stock and standard there, but we have those features integrated into the Evo 5 with auto revert, marking, the interference management, and then everything we've gone over there. Now, one thing functionally, this is another important one I want to mention with you guys, is the switch on this. So this is a mechanical slider, and you guys, I'm sure, can hopefully relate. You have students of all sorts and all backgrounds show up at your thing, but we find out, even though it's in the manual, talking to people about turning this on and turning it off. So the switch is designed just squeezing it from the top down to go into an on position where it will boot up, again, give you a group check option, and eventually show you the software version, the power. But that makes sure it's locked into that slider mode, into send mode. This is the point where you put in your pocket, do your check, whatever you're going to do. In order to move it out of that send mode, you have to push the lock here and do the slider. So you could go down into search mode from here. You can go up into off, whatever you want to do. And those are kind of the only functions of the slider. Now, here's a really interesting thing. Again, if you kind of get one little juice nugget from this whole thing, when we developed this beacon, it's really interesting because hardware switches became a topic of conversation, just to put it that way, right around the time this beacon was being launched. Specifically, as many of you guys know, being in the know and in the education world here, there's an accident in Jackson Hole where an athlete had inadvertently mechanically moved the slider. And again, this can happen from impact. You're going into trees, you're crashing, you're doing different reasons, and moving the slider. We had set a insurance backup safety, we'll call it, element on the Evo 5, where when you either turn this off, so again, if it was forcibly moved, the mechanical switch, and again, most every beacon out there has different mechanical switches of sorts, but if it goes into the off position, you have to do, it's a 2-step process to turn it off. So there's the hardware switch of moving the slide, and then there is the software confirmation. It's going to say, hey, are you sure you want to turn off? You press the flag. Got it? So again, think about this, and this is where like Arva takes a lot of stand, is we'll always err on the side of safety. And so again, go back to that instance where it was on someone else. Again, it wasn't an Arva at that time, but it was mechanically moved. Without that person, or again, in the future, checking in to say, hey, yes, I definitely want to turn it off, it would revert back to transmit so that person could be found. So it was kind of funny, as a lot of people on social media blew up that situation. we had a solution for it based in our software there. Okay. And on the flip side, we get a couple people that email us every now and say, hey, my beacon won't turn off. I flip the switch and it stays flashing and it's still transmitting. It's just a simple action, you know, not saying, hey, you should read your manual, but just, yeah, it's a 2-step hardware, software, just confirm, and then boom, yourself. And again, people do it once, twice, they've got the routine, they're done. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen that in the field, but that's something, a good little base knowledge to have. And then last, we have
a super quick question that just popped into the chat. I'll let you, it'll probably be less confusing if I just have you read it aloud.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the question is, does it have the same feature in search mode, like it does in transmit and search at the same time? So when you're in search mode, you're going to be toggled all the way down. And again, this is, you know, a base to know, no beacon out there locks in search mode. This is, I don't know that it's a European spec or a regulation there, but nothing's going to lock into search mode. And again, functionally, we step out, we're in search, there's a second avalanche, you know, it's going to hit the fan. You can always manually tap something and go into search to know that, hey, this search is going to be compromised. I need to get back to transmit as soon as possible. I think that's my reckoning of how that design is there. So no beacon out there will lock in search mode. The backup we have in transmit. So if, say, I think what the participant's asking here is, if you're in transmit, you forcibly went somehow, again, it's a 2-step lock to get down there, but somehow it hits into search and you're in search mode. The backup safety measure there is that auto revert timer will notify every 8 minutes it's on. So say you're walking or hiking or you hit something on it as anytime you went from off into receive or search, that 8-minute timer starts and it's going to check on you every 8 minutes. So that's kind of the backup for inadvertently moving to the same way. And another question from Sailor, it seems like more likely switch movement direction would be from transmit to search. Why not lock transmit? So transmit does lock. So yeah, that's a good clarification, but that's kind of why I mentioned with this one, it's nice to just snap it down to turn it on, so you're not in between modes at all with the lock or go too far. Snapping it down will just make it stop in that transmit mode, and it does lock in transmit. So that's where you have to unlock the slider with the button push and the pull down. Thank you, that's great clarification, appreciate that. Super, so again, that's our Evo 5. Again, I'm just bruising through these. Our Neo, I won't spend some time here. This is a great model. We've evolved this one over time. Again, it came out as the first 60-meter beacon. Last year we updated, or 2 years ago, with the Neo Plus that had a 70-meter range. So we're able to tune in some of the hardware and software to get a little bit bigger range. And again, the size, the placement of the antennas, you have a big range. And then this beacon, if I'm going to describe it in 2 different phases, it's very customizable and it's very intuitive as to what it can do, but it still has a really easy interface. So so again, if this is something where if you guys wanted to try something as instructors, I'm going to go ahead and extend this now, but you can just use the email that was on this, or if we have a follow-up email that we can get you one of these to try for either low or very minimal cost or no cost as a demo, because this is a great transceiver. We will be updating it next year, but 2 things I love is this goes into an analog mode. And so you can show students, hey, this is what the signal actually sounds like. Again, and there's only 2 or I think 3 beacons right now that will technically do a full analog mode that you can listen to signals. So, the analogy I like to use is that they're listening to a car horn. And so it's able to do 1 or do 2 or do 3, and you can show and turn a second one on and the person can hear it. So they're kind of visualizing kind of those transmissions. This also has that standby mode I was talking about. So when you toggle this up into search, you get into that shoveling mode. You just hold the flag button and close it. It will flash that it's in standby. You can now secure it in your pocket. You're not going to be dangling from your belt and shoveling and bouncing around or anything like that. And then again, very customizable with the search reduction. That interference management system is built into this. The group check is built into this, and that check does have an error tone where if the beacon is very drifted, it's a bad inaccurate signal that off the 457, it will give you an error tone that, hey, you should upgrade your beacon for this reason. And so that's going into the Neo. And with that, again, that's a good model we're talking about, but I do want to save a few minutes. I know Earth gets time. Let me hit my screen really quick for a last little hoorah. Where we're heading in the future. So we've taken in a lot of considerations and customer feedbacks, different from all over the world. And you get these simple things by the end consumer, that they want to train, they want to do different things with their beacon. And so these are more modern questions now that the product has evolved. We're addressing these, and we're really excited that next year we'll launch. Again, this isn't an infomercial. I don't really care, but the Neo Bluetooth that you see down in the corner here will be a new product for next year. So I've got one here. This is one of our samples we're out showing retailers and media now. This is going to be, it's an all new case. It's a new size, a new style. It's going to be the first beacon to reach an 80-meter range. However, that's only part of kind of what we're excited about. What we're excited about here is that there's going to be an app integration. And again, we're not the first ones to go on this, but what we are going to do with that app, I think is going to be unique in that people will be able to link it to videos to get to know their product better. So again, you guys have students show up, they've got their product, they just pulled out of the box, they just showed up. That's not the scenario you guys want. That's not what we want. That's not what their partner wants. And so the Bluetooth and the app integration is going to be that bridge that, hey, they can go home, sit on their couch and learn everything this does as if they were on an ARRI webinar, or sitting at home with an ARRI instructor to know their product better. So that's going to be something we're going to be excited to launch next year. This beacon also, it's going to retail at $399, so it's still pretty affordable. Again, we see once you go over $400, you kind of either lose an audience or it's not as relative. So that's one thing with Arva being independent, we've been able to put a lot of features in for the money, a lot of bang for the buck, and that's at any level of our product. So and again, I'll take beacon questions here in 1 second if there is any more. And then just a note, and this isn't a thing that, hey, we sell airbags, but Arva is a company, we have a very rich history in this category. So you guys obviously are seeing as much as we are that, hey, kind of those essential tools are beacon, shovel, probe, and then a lot of times airbag gets added on there. So we see this, again, it's the tool that can save yourself. It's something that's increasing odds statistically and doing, no substitute for good judgment whatsoever. We totally agree with that. But we have a system out that we see as very proven and very mechanically advantageous to all the other canister systems out there as well. So canister versus electric, it's a conversation maybe for another webcast, but we see the canister as still as the most proven and most reliable system out there. Again, in my personal, it's just simple physics, and that's where I kind of gravitate to this. There's no question that for traveling and testing purposes, it's convenient to have one of those capacitors or one of those fans in there. But when you start to look at all the little micro aspects of what this product does or what you're asking it to do in snow, there's a lot of little things where it's kind of that, I like to describe it as that Volkswagen to Porsche of little details that are going to make a big difference. And so I invite you guys to look at some of this product, do your research. But again, from a strong inflation power of the system to a dual chamber airbag to a rigid airbag design. And then overall, it's a very light feeling pack because of the way we lay it up. We feel like, again, when you look at these products and how they perform, and if a lot of people work as guides, they have big 40 liters. People aren't snowmobiles, they want nothing. The way our system is balanced, it feels like a normal backpack. And it's, I can definitely speak to that. It's not top heavy, it's not side heavy, it's very balanced. And one thing we are doing as a company, again, take this for what you will with it, but we are really trying to, and it's funny that we're kind of doing this a little bit by ourselves, but we're working with a ton of retailers to make these fill stations, to make, places accessible to filling and make it a functional thing. We currently have refill stations, 10 minutes from every major airport in the West. We also offer mail-in options for people that would like to send us an empty, and we send a full to either their home or their travel destination. So these are little kind of outside the boxes of, hey, I need to get this canister filled, or hey, you should have 2 canisters maybe, and this is why. You can still be priced well under what those $1,200 newer packs are, with multiple canisters and different things. So that's the conversation for multiple deployments or whatever. So yeah, but we were innovated. We were actually used to be sister companies with ABS, the company that kind of founded this category, and we have a couple of their old original designers and service people on our design team. So the guys that are building these for us have a 15-year experience in airbags, and you'll see we'll have some options for patrol in 50 liters and very different sizes that you can exchange out for customers both this year and for next year. But yeah, I open it up to questions, closing, and any comments or questions. And again, if you're not watching live, you're watching a recorded version, feel free to reach out to us at service@Arva Equipment. Let us know you watched the ARI education. Let us know if you have any questions, comments, or we can help you in any regard. But again, we're here as an independent company. We're here to help you. We're here to help the end consumer, and that's kind of what I hope to get out of today.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. That was great. Folks, I'm going to drop a link to the ARI YouTube channel in the chat. So this will be posted there later. And then let's see, it looks like Tristan mentioned potentially getting a sample of the Neo. So I'll make sure that you have one another's contact info so that you can. Awesome. All right, I don't see anything coming in, so I think we're good. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. That was super informative. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Pray for snow.
Yeah, no kidding. Especially here in Boise, where it is beautiful and sunny, but would like some snow. Awesome. Okay, thanks so much. Catch you all soon.
Take care.